Why, hello and welcome everybody. Also, good morning. So today we have a bit of a, I wouldn't necessarily say a hot topic since most people are in agreement of this, but I guess it's still kind of like a hot topic. And that is going to be my take on the current rarity situation. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at it, but we're going to make it pretty simple, right? So first off, for people who are unaware, the rarity situation is basically the stat in the game called increased rarity, right? It applies to three things primarily. And these three things would be, number one, you have Atlas. Sorry, that's the wrong one. You have item tier, which I'll show in a second over here. You've got currency tier up, and currency tier up is the process of like a transmute turning into an exalt, or an exalt turning into a regal, or an exalt turning into a chaos, into a divine, etc. And then you have unique items, which is the chance of you getting unique items. I could put rares in there too, but I don't think rare is as important because what's more important is this that you see here, the tier. Now, to talk about these three things one at a time, right? There's so many different ways to approach this and look at it, but starting from a baseline, when you are stacking item rarity on your character, right, you are effectively farming more currency. Okay, this is like very obvious. In POE2, there's only so much map juicing you can do unless you're going to be putting crazy delirium on everything, right? You can only go up to T15, then T16, then you put your league mechanics on, you finish your league mechanic stuff, you put on your towers, etc. It's very unlikely to just say double your character's clear speed, right? Like if you look at my current character, there's no way I could just double my speed unless I put on, you know, the no-hit Sanctum chest and just start blinking around everywhere. However, when it comes to rarity, it's not necessarily that difficult for me to say get about 100 rarity. It is very annoying with the current state of crafting in the game, but that 100% rarity would make such a massive, impactful difference when it comes to farming currency for my character. Now, the reason why I bring this up is I am specifically bringing this up from an SSF point of view. And I know the game is not balanced around SSF, but what I like is when I'm playing SSF, I can give a direct opinion without any form of trading, meaning all of what I'm about to show you is what I have farmed myself. And I'll show you why I feel it's relevant in this context. And again, we have a lot of different parts to talk about, but I think this one's a good one to start with. So currently in the game of Path of Exile 2, crafting is extremely limited. Unless you are buying greater essences on, you know, the market, or you are buying omens, which can get incredibly expensive, there's not really too much crafting when you're trying to get past 3 properties on an item, right? So 3 properties being, say you're trying to craft a weapon and you want percent fizz, flat fizz, and attack speed. You could reliably get that every, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 attempts. Problem is going from a 3-step to a 4-step, or a 4-step to a 5-step. So maybe now you want to guarantee crit. Well, you can't really do that. And then you want to get crit damage. And then you want to get hybrid fizz. Anyway, the point stands. Crafting is very difficult in this current stage of the game, right? Well, unfortunately, if you look at my stash here, a lot of crafting in SSF, for me, has been gated behind Chaos Orbs. Chaos Orbs are pretty rare when you're talking about dropping Regals or Exalts. Not to mention, the Chaos Orb has a lot of uses, right? Maybe you get a somewhat halfway in between good weapon like mine right here, right? Technically, I could Chaos, and maybe I get lucky, and the accuracy rating turns into WED, so like increased elemental damage with weapons, or that hybrid physical. Or maybe I hit the, right here, the life gain on kill, and the life gain on kill turns into, say, crit damage. Well, the problem with the Chaos Orb is it can only pick one of these affixes to reroll right now. If there were 5 affixes, I believe it can remove like a prefix and then add a suffix or whatever, but the point still stands. It's going to take an average of more than 1 Chaos Orb. So what occurs is while I'm crafting my items, whenever I get something halfway decent, I of course want to Exalt Slam, but I also want a Chaos. The problem is Chaos is so much more rare than Exalts. Like, there's nothing I can really do. I could go do Ultimatum, spend, you know, 10, 20 minutes and get, like, a Chaos or 2, but I want to be able to farm them like Exalts because I want to craft. You know, before we talk about essences here, my character has killed 330,000 monsters, and I found 4 greater essences. To be fair, I did have crystalline growths for majority of my time playing, And then I did not ever have this node because it did not really feel justified. And the other problem would be omens. These are all the omens I found, with the exception of one extra one for voling. And none of these helped me craft in this context. So this is an orb of alchemy will result in maximum number of prefix. That's like actually pretty good, but that can't help me with a completed product, right? That's just when I alch it, it's going to guarantee 3 prefix. Regal, pretty good, but again, this is entering the 3-step method. Remember how I talked about the 3-step? You have a good prefix, you have a good suffix, you're going to regal and get a prefix. We're still only on 3 properties, right? Then you have the greater exalt, which is just a double exalt, and then you have alchemy, but on the suffix. So for me, the void that I'm missing is the chaos orb. The only other thing I can do with crafting in the current state is just basically close my eyes and exalt orb. So now we go back to rarity. How does rarity tie into this? Well, if I want to get more chaos orbs, like a lot more chaos orbs, I stack rarity on my character. And this doesn't seem like too bad of a concept when you think about it, but I just wish that there was another avenue to explore instead of saying I need to magic find, right? And then I know there's always going to be comments saying like, you shouldn't compare yourself to what other people are doing. And thankfully I'm not. I'm playing solo self-found. I'm comparing myself to literally what drops in the maps, right? I can say since getting some more rarity on my character, I only have like 45, but I was basically at like 10% before. Just that small amount of rarity that I gain on my character, I immediately noticed getting slightly more chaos orbs. But GCPs, for example, are dropping like crazy now. Versus before, it took me so long to acquire my gem cutters, and I assume that the same formula is somewhat applying all the way up till you hit like soft cap or maybe some form of diminishing returns on rarity. I'm going to imagine somewhere around 200%. The point still stands though. It feels really bad when you start playing a build now and you look at it and say, I have a really nice helmet, but it doesn't have any rarity on it. If I dropped a few stats and got more rarity, everything I'm farming would feel so much better. And I don't really like, I'm not a big fan of that. I would always rather there's kind of 2 avenues to explore. You could speed farm with a magic find character, but do lower content, or you could do the, higher content on your stronger character, and both of them kind of reward different things. Now, this is kind of interesting though, because POE2 is currently at a baseline. When I say a baseline, I mean we're on like a blank slate. We don't have, new expansions for league mechanics. We just have what's like naturally in the game. It very well could be that when there's more content, rarity is not as impactful because maybe mobs have a baseline of rarity that is additive with your rarity. So, maybe the mob has inherently 2000% rarity and you have 400, but that's massive diminishing returns, so it doesn't really matter. But for farming baseline content, that rarity really helps. Does that sort of make sense? And that could very well happen in future stuff. But there's no way for us as the players to tell what is going to happen with the future because we're only playing early access. So of course we're going to voice our concerns, right? Now, moving forward with a few other things. You remember how I was talking about crafting, or not crafting, but I was talking about item tier? So item tier is another funny thing. When you kill mobs in this game, they can drop rare items. And rare items can roll with it like a tier at the end of it. It'll say like T or tier, and it will show a number. And when you identify the said item, the affixes on the item will all be raised because of that tier, right? So that basically means on average, you're literally identifying better gear. This is a problem because crafting is already so inconsistent in the current stage for getting those higher pieces that now I tell myself, if I stacked rarity, I would get more chaos orbs, which means I could craft more, but also I am finding significantly more bases with the higher tier affix, which means I can skip the entire part of crafting and then just farm mobs to get gear, identify the good baseline gear, and then yet again use chaos orbs to try to kind of find, like to get an even better piece. So then rarity is now, like, you see where I'm talking about how it kind of starts to stack up against all the different modifiers on how it starts getting a little out of control for me. The last one would be unique items. I personally don't really care. Like, I can't really comment too much here. I definitely noticed going even up a little bit of rarity, I found more unique items. I think a better thing to talk about maybe is the economy. And I'm probably not the right person to talk about the economy here since most of my time is in solo self-found. Hey, look at GCP. But one of the main things to talk about with the economy is newer players who are entering the game are just going to be even further and further at a disadvantage And again, that's just part of Path of Exile. Hey, look, a unique item. And the reason is when the top end players, and to be fair, this always happens. Like every Path of Exile league, this would happen regardless, right? But when the top end players are stacking Rarity and farming content, they are dropping, you know, so many Divines, so many Exalteds, so many, etc., everything, basically. And then a new player just now enters the maps, and they clear their whole map, it takes them 25 minutes, and they get 1 Exalt. Because they got no Rarity, they're on lower map tier, right? They're not doing league mechanics, so it just makes an even bigger difference, I guess you could say. And that part is technically fine. The only downside is that it's like discouraging, but I mean, to be fair, that's kind of Path of Exile, so I don't really know if that part actually matters per se. It was just kind of something to think about, right? More than anything else. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below on how you guys feel about Rarity. I don't really know where I want it to go, to be honest. I am okay with the idea of magic finding in the game, but I'm not okay with it when it's so impactful that it feels not as good to farm just because I don't have Rarity, right? It's just not exactly the best feeling. So you guys let me know in the comments down below what you think should happen, whether or not maybe it should only affect gear and not affect currency, maybe vice versa, maybe something entirely different, you know, maybe push the diminishing returns on Rarity even further. Maybe they make it so they keep Rarity the way it is, and everything in endgame content just gets a baseline of Rarity, so it makes it so magic finders are not as strong in that content, yet they still have an advantage, but it's not as big of an advantage, right? Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. I gotta go get the dog. He is woofing. Remember, if you liked the video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, you can catch me streaming live every day but Sundays at twitch.tv/Pohx. Take care. Thanks for watching, everybody.